up next, we've got John, CJ, and Cody. What? Well, what is the title of this here thing that you're presenting? Def Farcaster feed.
Something like that. Doesn't have a formal title yet. It's just like the words that make sense. But yeah, this all kind of began when CJ and I were having a chat, and we're just like, Farcaster is this cool thing, but it's kind of just like been transported from the Twitter world into, for the Farcaster world, and there was like a lot of parity in that user experience between those apps. So we just kind of figured, is there something that can build on Sam's work with the Def membership token and like actually put this protocol to use in the way that I think like is the hope and the goal of everybody building Farcaster. And so some mucking about with the API docs and token things, we basically got this feed that's just scanning for all members that hold this token, and it just gets the latest casts from each member and puts it into the cjpais. So quick map of the architecture here. So obviously all Farcaster is running on Goerli. We're just pulling that into the Vercel instance here. That's getting put into cjpais, and that's just happening once every minute or two. So the caching and like the scaling is handled by Vercel, not us. And the front end is just basically pulling down this data and rendering it in a sort of reverse chronological order, a little bit of metadata. So that was cool. And I think the development process on Farcaster was like relatively painless and seamless. And so that's when Cody started noodling on the like presentation of the data. And that's how we get here. So this is basically sourced from the same data. And I think Cody can kind of like jam on this for a bit.
Oh my God.
Sure. Yes. So I always thought it would be funny if like Def had its own version of Hacker News. But like the more Def way to do that would be to do it in a very interoperable quasi decentralized way. So this is more just the styling of it. But it creates a kind of context for it. Oh wow, you have the desktop version. So yeah, just I thought it was a fun frame, and then it was something that we could like put in sort of like YC has like news.y combinator, like we could do that like either like links or whatever .defdao to make like a more public facing view for this data. Oh yeah, there we go. Yeah, Sam. So this is how interoperable it is. It's there. But so it also like raised an interesting thing, which is like, could we also like what would it mean to like build that out a bit more? And we sort of started jamming on like how to make like a write function for this as well, to be able to like have this sort of be like a client, but that might be sort of an architecture thing later.
Yes, so that's kind of just one of the interesting things about Farcaster right now. I expected it to be easier to write through an interface like this, but as we discovered, that still entails pulling your private key of your like Farcaster account out of Farcaster, pulling it to Rainbow, then authenticating to a site. So it's a little painful. I imagine that process is going to get smoother over time, but that would have been like a nice low stakes thing to have. But ultimately, it's a little convoluted at this moment. So I think on like sort of what this thing is, and CJ, feel free to jump in here at any point. I think the most interesting thing here is how sort of composable and forkable this thing is, because once that data feed is there, like anybody can sort of just like start messing with how you want to present the data. And since we're just like pulling all this from the Def contract, that's a relatively easy thing to clone and fork as well for other discords, for other collections. And I think once you have that happening, you sort of get this opportunity to do interesting queries across multiple servers and communities at the same time. Let's just say, what are the people that are like in these three servers talking about, and what are they sharing, and like what's the conversation there?
This is so sick. Frolic has created the obligatory handshake Def Farcaster Hacker News. I'd like to gently request that Def token holders get special colors and privileges not available to non-deaf people on this website,
Absolutely.
obviously, but nobody on the outside should be aware of that.
Definitely.
Sam suggested the idea of including other NFT feeds, which is really interesting. I also really love the suggestion you made around like this idea of like Def plus Manny. Like
Mhm.
that definitely makes it like, no pun intended, more. I don't know. It's a cool way of having like a
Inter-server sort of like. Oh, yeah. It's an interesting bridge. Like that Discord
Yeah.
really doesn't make easy to build in any way, and just two contracts side by side doesn't quite give you. But once you have a social graph, I think it becomes much easier to build queries like that.
Totally. Yeah, and it's an interesting kind of like watering hole idea, since it's like this is the closest thing I've seen to like Google Web3 Google Reader.
Yeah. So I think one thing we want to like open up a conversation for is just like, this is, you know, how we're just picturing this thing at this current moment, but Def is a community of builders, and I like, we would love to sort of make it easy for anybody who feels like they have like an idea that they want to try about how this data can be displayed, what sort of interactions are possible here, what kind of queries, and just like let the experiments run wild. And we're very curious about like the easiest way to facilitate that. And so perhaps that's a conversation, you know, sometime over the next couple of weeks that we schedule, and just like a chat about the easiest flow to get this repo to a place where anybody can just sort of like work off of the data that's here without having to run and clone the whole stack themselves. So if anybody's interested in that, I think we can have a project sort of thread forum post going soon, and I think we can coordinate that there.
I love it. This is awesome. Frolic is volunteering to submit some CSS patches for you.
Yes, please.
Sam as well, it looks like. And
Nice.
Seth Fork mentioned he's interested in linking up. Feel free to chime in. We got about 10 minutes left. So let's, you guys ready for some feature creep? Because here it comes.
Right.
Let's go.
One other thought as well is like, John and I have been talking a lot about like how to make like a more accessible like public view for like all the good stuff that happens in Discords. So I feel like we're at a place where there's tons of really interesting activity in a variety of Discords, but it usually just locks in there. So I think there could be something that's like, some version of like DAO diplomacy where like, yeah, getting the Mannies or getting like other communities to like have a clean way of like putting links out there. So there could be other inputs here aside from just CAS. And it's interesting to think about like how like even in Def, like links could go outward to in a more public way.
Totally.
There are some like privacy concerns there because we want to make sure people are know the context to which they're adding stuff. But I think those could be signaled.
Nope.
Yeah, it could be the kind of thing where it's like, well, John, you wrote the React bot. I've been wondering about this kind of like, it needs 2 reactions to get posted idea. Forget if you have that as a rule, but
multi-sig.
yeah,
It's an option.
Yeah.
But definitely it's just like yeah, that's where it's interesting. Is emoji bot is like pulling things out of sort of Discord, and then like this is pulling things out of Farcaster. And is there a place where a community can, like, even though it has a bunch of these scattered digital locations and places, like actually show sort of what's happening in one place, in one coherent way. I think that's really exciting.
Yeah, and then theoretically, like with your emoji bot, like if this is a big feature creep, but if it could fire a webhook, just make a request somewhere, then we could write like an endpoint, then post it to Farcaster to like a shared account or something. Which
totally.
I know Dan is down for that, like for certain organizations. Like I got him to give me like the Helium username, like so we could theoretically get like a Def or definitely username on Farcaster to do links.
I think I might have taken it.
Hell yeah.
I forget if I did, but I think there's a good chance that I might have.
We have decentralized intellectual property. in the organization. So like, it's always a question of like, who owns
Sounds
the
like a
Twitter
DAO.
account? Yeah, totally. Totally.
Yeah.
I also want to just say, mostly to Sam, like, holy crap, like this, it's funny how much the membership NFT thing has like spawned things.
Yeah.
And that's really cool. Yeah,
and it was
thank you,
it's
Nexus.
such a, it's such a good code base. Like, I don't know if you guys have the same experience. It's just like really pleasant to work in. It's like really kudos. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
no, totally.
Yeah, it's really cool how it serves as a sort of like coordinating nexus. Like, oh, there's this thing that now like is sort of it's receptive to additions, but that don't necessarily have to integrate with it like at the core level. They can just sort of build adjacent to it, and then the whole thing sort of emerges. Honestly, really amazing stuff. Big props.
A little magic.